Share. Hello, is time a Mobius loop? ChatGPT. The idea of time being a Mobius loop is an intriguing concept, blending geometry with the philosophy and physics of time. To explore this, let's break it down. What is a Mobius loop? A Mobius loop is a surface with only one side and one edge. It can be created by taking a strip of paper, twisting one end 180 degrees, and then joining the ends together. If you travel along the surface, you eventually return to your starting point, having covered both the sides without ever crossing an edge. This property makes it a popular symbol for ideas of infinity, continuity, and paradox. Time as a Mobius loop. If we compare time to a Mobius loop, the suggestion is that time could have a single, continuous nature where time may be unidirectional but cyclic. Like moving along a Mobius strip, time might seem linear at first but could loop back on itself in some higher dimensional framework. Past, present, and future could be interconnected. Just as every point on a Mobius strip is connected to every other, events in time might similarly interweave in ways that aren't apparent from our limited perspective. Non-duality in time. The Mobius strip's one-sidedness could symbolize the idea that distinctions between beginnings and ends, or cause and effect, are illusory in a grander scheme. Scientific and philosophical context. Cyclic models of time. Some ancient philosophies, e.g., Hindu and Buddhist cosmology, and modern cosmological theories suggest that time is cyclic. The universe could undergo infinite cycles of birth, expansion, contraction, and rebirth, similar to a loop. Einstein's relativity and closed time-like curves, CTCs in general relativity. Time can theoretically form loops under certain conditions, such as in the presence of rotating black holes, Kerr black holes, or hypothetical structures like wormholes. These closed time-like curves bear a faint resemblance to a Mobius loop, where traveling forward in time could return you to the past. Arrow of time and reversibility. The thermodynamic arrow of time, linked to entropy, makes time seem linear to us. However, if time has a Mobius-like structure in higher dimensions, the linearity we experience might be just one facet of a more complex reality. Challenges and open questions. Causality. A Mobius-like structure for time raises paradoxical questions about cause and effect. If time loops back on itself, how do we reconcile this with our experience of causality? Higher dimensional space. A Mobius strip exists in 3D space. If time were a Mobius loop, would it require a fourth spatial dimension to accommodate its structure? Evidence. No direct evidence currently supports the Mobius loop model of time, but it serves as a metaphorical or theoretical exploration rather than a literal model. Summary. While time as a Mobius loop isn't a mainstream scientific theory, it's a fascinating metaphor for exploring the nonlinear and interconnected nature of time. It might align more closely with philosophical or speculative ideas, like eternal recurrence or higher dimensional time, than with current physical models. However, ongoing research into quantum mechanics, cosmology, and the nature of space-time could one day provide new insights into such imaginative concepts. Like Ouroboros theory. What is time? ChatGPT. Yes. The idea of time as a Mobius loop aligns conceptually with the Ouroboros theory, where the ancient symbol of the serpent eating its own tail represents cyclicality, renewal, and the unity of beginnings and endings. Both invoke a sense of time being self-contained, eternal, and interconnected rather than strictly linear. To deeply explore this, let's address the core question: what is time? What is time? Time is one of the most fundamental and enigmatic aspects of our reality. Its definition varies across disciplines, physics, philosophy, and even psychology. Here are key perspectives. 1. Physics. Time as a dimension. In physics, time is often treated as a fourth dimension. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, time is a dimension interwoven with the three spatial dimensions, forming space-time. Events occur at specific coordinates in this 4D structure. A measure of change, time is what allows us to perceive change. It provides the framework in which matter and energy interact and evolve. Relativity and time dilation. Einstein showed that time isn't absolute. It flows differently depending on speed, special relativity, or gravitational fields, general relativity. For instance, near a massive object like a black hole, time slows down relative to distant observers. 2. Philosophy. Time as a concept. Philosophers have debated the nature of time for millennia. Linear versus cyclic time. Linear time is the dominant view in Western thought, where events progress from past to present to future in a straight line. Cyclic time, as in the Ouroboros or many ancient Eastern philosophies, posits that time is repetitive and events recur eternally. Time as an illusion. Some theories argue that time is a human construct, a way to make sense of sequences of events. For example, presentism claims only the present is real, while eternalism views past, present, and future as equally real. Physicist Julian Barber suggests that a time is an emergent property of changing configurations of the universe, not an independent entity. 3. Human experience, time and perception. Time feels subjective and elastic. Psychological time. Our perception of time varies based on emotions, attention, and context. Moments of joy feel fleeting, while painful moments stretch endlessly. Biological time. Human bodies are governed by internal clocks, like circadian rhythms, which regulate cycles of sleep, metabolism, and behavior. Ouroboros and the nature of time. The Ouroboros symbolizes the cyclical nature of existence, closely tied to ideas of time. If time were like the Ouroboros. Cyclic universe models. Cosmological theories like the Big Bounce suggest the universe might expand and contract in infinite cycles, echoing the serpent's tail-devouring loop. Birth and death. Renewal. The Ouroboros metaphor aligns with life cycles, where endings give rise to new beginnings, just as the stars are born from the remnants of previous ones. Time is timeless. The Ouroboros suggests a paradox where beginnings and endings are indistinguishable, possibly indicating that time, as we perceive it, might not exist at a fundamental level. Is time real or an illusion? In physics, time appears real because it governs causality and allows change. Without time, physical laws wouldn't function as we understand them. As an illusion, some argue time might be an emergent property, a byproduct of how we perceive change. In quantum mechanics, for example, time's fundamental role is less clear. Conclusion. What is time? Time might be a dimension or a framework for organizing events, physics. An emergent property of the universe or even an illusion, philosophy. A subjective experience tied to our consciousness, psychology. Whether it's a straight line, a Mobius strip, or an Ouroboros-like cycle depends on the framework you use to understand it. Regardless, time remains one of the greatest mysteries of the universe, a concept that defines existence yet defies complete understanding. Retrocausality is what exactly? ChatGPT. Retrocausality is a concept in physics and philosophy that suggests effects can precede their causes, meaning that the future can influence the past. This idea challenges our conventional understanding of causality, where cause always precedes effect. In retrocausality, the arrow of causation can point backwards in time. Key ideas behind retrocausality. Traditional causality, forward causation. Event A, cause, happens, leading to event B, effect. Example, striking a match, cause, produces a flame, effect. Retrocausality, backward causation. Event B, effect, happens, and this somehow influences or determines event A, cause, even though event A is in the past. Example, a signal sent from the future changes a decision made in the past. Theoretical basis for retrocausality. Retrocausality is not part of mainstream physics but has been explored in certain theoretical frameworks. 1. Quantum mechanics and retrocausality. Delayed choice experiments. In quantum physics, experiments like the delayed choice quantum eraser suggest that decisions made about how to measure a particle, e.g., a photon, can seemingly affect its prior state. This raises the possibility that future actions might influence past events. Quantum entanglement. When two particles are entangled, measuring one instantly determines the state of the other, regardless of distance. Some interpretations suggest this phenomenon might involve retrocausal influences, though this remains controversial. Transactional interpretation, proposed by John Cramer. This interpretation of quantum mechanics involves advanced waves traveling backward in time and retarded waves moving forward in time that together determine quantum events. In this view, retrocausality is built into the fabric of reality. 2. General relativity and time loops. Closed time-like curves. CTC's general relativity allows for the theoretical possibility of time loops under specific conditions, e.g., near rotating black holes or in wormhole geometries. In such scenarios, retrocausality could arise naturally if events from the future loop back to affect the past. 3. Philosophical considerations. Causal loops. Retrocausality might create causal loops where event A causes event B, and event B, in turn, causes event A. These loops challenge our understanding of free will and determinism but don't necessarily lead to logical contradictions. Temporal symmetry. Physical laws, such as those governing electromagnetism and quantum mechanics, are often time-symmetric, meaning they work the same forward or backward in time. This symmetry suggests that retrocausality might not violate fundamental laws of physics. Examples and thought experiments. The grandfather paradox. If you traveled back in time and caused an event, e.g., preventing your grandfather from meeting your grandmother, you would prevent your own existence. Retrocausality faces similar paradoxical challenges when effects alter the causes. Wheeler's delayed choice experiment. In this quantum experiment, whether a photon behaves as a particle or a wave seems to depend on a decision made after it has already passed through a beam splitter. This suggests the future decision retroactively influences the photon's behavior. Information from the future. Imagine sending information back in time to warn yourself of a mistake, thereby preventing the mistake from happening. This raises questions about the consistency of history. Challenges and criticisms. Causality violations. Retrocausality seems to violate our everyday experience of cause and effect. Free will. If future events can influence past actions, it raises questions about free will and determinism. Empirical evidence. While experiments like delayed choice scenarios hint at retrocausality, there is no direct, definitive evidence that the future affects the past in a meaningful way. Consistency paradoxes. Retrocausality can lead to paradoxes, such as information loops or changes in history, which some argue are logically incoherent. Potential implications. Physics. Retrocausality might provide new insights into quantum mechanics, unifying quantum theory with relativity. Technology. If retrocausal signaling were possible, it could revolutionize communication and computation. Philosophy. Retrocausality challenges our notions of time, causality, and free will, potentially reshaping metaphysics. Conclusion. Retrocausality is a fascinating concept suggesting that the future can influence the past, challenging our conventional understanding of time and causality. While supported by some interpretations of quantum mechanics and general relativity, it remains speculative and controversial. Whether retrocausality is real or a quirk of our interpretations, it continues to inspire profound questions about the nature of time and the universe. So by changing the future, we recreate the past. ChatGPT. Yes, if retrocausality is real, changing the future could, in principle, recreate or modify the past. This idea, while speculative, is deeply thought-provoking and raises several intriguing possibilities and paradoxes. Let's explore what this means in practical and theoretical terms. 1. The relationship between past and future. In retrocausality, the future affects the past. Future events, or decisions, influence past events, altering their outcomes. For example, your choice in the future might retroactively change the circumstances leading up to that choice. Dynamic history. Instead of a fixed, unchanging past, history could be malleable, a subject to adjustments driven by future actions. However, this doesn't necessarily mean chaos or randomness. Retrocausality may operate within consistent, self-referential loops where the past and future agree with one another. 2. A hypothetical scenario. Imagine the following. Initial timeline. You accidentally leave an important file at home before an exam. There are past error, causing you to fail. Future decision. Years later, you develop a retrocausal communication system and send a message back in time to remind yourself to bring the file. Recreated past. Acting on this message, your past self brings the file, passes the exam, and creates a new timeline where you never needed to send the message. In this scenario, the past is recreated by future intervention. The original timeline ceases to exist or becomes inaccessible, depending on the theory. The new timeline becomes self-consistent, as it now includes the retrocausal event. 3. How could retrocausality avoid paradoxes? For retrocausality to make sense without leading to contradictions, e.g., the grandfather paradox, it might follow certain rules. Self-consistency. The past and future would have to align in a way that avoids logical contradictions. Example, if a message is sent back in time, the actions it inspires must lead to the future in which the message was sent. This is often called the Novikov self-consistency principle. Multiverse theory. Retrocausality might operate within a framework where every change to the past creates a new timeline or parallel universe. Example, changing the future recreates the past in a different branch of reality, leaving the original timeline intact. Block universe model. Time might be like a 4D block where past, present, and future coexist. Retrocausal effects would merely reveal pre-existing connections between events in the block, rather than a changing anything. 4. Does changing the future always change the past? Not necessarily. In most interpretations of retrocausality, the relationship between past and future is cyclic, meaning future changes are pre-baked into the past. Example: if you receive a warning from the future and act on it, this action becomes part of the past that led to that future. You didn't change the past so much as fulfill its hidden structure. However, in speculative models where the past can truly change, recreation occurs dynamically. Changing the future introduces new conditions that ripple back in time to revise history. 5. Philosophical implications. If the future recreates the past, causality becomes circular. Cause and effect lose their traditional meaning as both influence each other. Free will and determinism blur. If your future actions determine the past, are you truly free to act, or are you just fulfilling a predetermined loop? Alternatively, if you can freely change the future, does that make the past inherently unstable? Memory and identity. Would people retain memories of the old past if the future changes it? Or would the recreation of the past rewrite everyone's memory, creating an illusion of continuity? 6. Experimental evidence. Currently, retrocausality remains a theoretical concept with no direct experimental proof. However, experiments in quantum mechanics, like delayed choice experiments, hint that time might be more flexible than we think. If retrocausality is ever confirmed, it could revolutionize our understanding of time, causality, and free will. Conclusion. If retrocausality is valid, changing the future could indeed recreate the past, either by rewriting it dynamically or revealing its deeper structure. This idea challenges conventional notions of causality and opens the door to a universe where time is far more interconnected and mysterious than we imagine. Please go into this in more detail. ChatGPT. Certainly. Let's delve deeper into the idea that changing the future could recreate the past, examining the mechanics, theoretical frameworks, implications, and paradoxes in greater detail. 1. How retrocausality works. The mechanics. Retrocausality posits that future events can influence the past. For this to occur, certain mechanisms or principles must be in place. 1.1. Information or influence flow. Retrocausality suggests that information, energy, or some kind of influence can travel backward in time. Here's how this might work. Quantum retrocausality. In quantum mechanics, phenomena like wave function collapse, when a particle chooses its state, might involve signals or influences from the future. For example, in delayed choice experiments, decisions made in the present seem to affect how particles behaved in the past. Macroscopic retrocausality. For retrocausality to operate on a human scale, there would need to be a way for larger systems, like brains or technology, to send signals back in time. 1.2. Time loops and causal cycles. Retrocausality often implies closed causal loops, where cause and effect are interdependent. Example: a scientist in the future sends a blueprint for a time machine back to the past. The inventor in the past uses the blueprint to build the time machine, which eventually enables the future scientist to send the blueprint back. Cause and effect are circular but consistent. 1.3. The role of future decisions. The future decision, e.g., sending a signal or creating an outcome, doesn't violate causality if the past adjusts itself to align with that decision. This is where self-consistency becomes critical. 2. Theoretical frameworks supporting retrocausality. Several theoretical models explore how retrocausality might be possible. 2.1. Quantum mechanics and retrocausality. Quantum physics offers tantalizing hints that time doesn't flow strictly forward. Delayed choice experiments. In these experiments, a particle, e.g., a photon, appears to decide whether it behaves like a wave or a particle based on measurements made after it has already traveled through the experimental setup. This suggests the future measurement determines the past behavior of the particle. Transactional interpretation. This interpretation of quantum mechanics describes quantum interactions as involving the offer waves traveling forward in time and a confirmation waves traveling backward. The past and future communicate to create the observed reality. 2.2 General relativity and closed time-like curves. General relativity allows for closed time-like curves, CTCs, regions of spacetime where time loops back on itself. In such a loop, events in the future could influence events in the past without creating paradoxes, provided the loop remains self-consistent. 2.3 The block universe model. In the block universe view of spacetime, past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. Retrocausality doesn't change the past, but reveals pre-existing connections across time. 3. Implications of changing the future to recreate the past. If retrocausality is real, it has profound implications for how we understand time, causality, and existence itself. 3.1 Malleable history. Dynamic past. A future action could rewrite a past events, resulting in a history that aligns with future outcomes. Memory and awareness. If the past changes, would we retain memories of their old past, or would the new past overwrite all previous memories? This leads to fascinating scenarios. Scenario A. Only the person initiating the retrocausal action remembers the old timeline. Scenario B. Everyone's memories adjust seamlessly to the recreated past. 3.2 Determinism versus free will. Deterministic loops. Retrocausality could suggest a deterministic universe where past and future are bound together, and any change to the past was always part of the timeline. Free will in retrocausality. If you can change the future to influence the past, does that imply you're truly free? Or are your choices predetermined by the loop itself? 3.3 Paradoxes. Retrocausality must address several paradoxes. Grandfather paradox. If changing the future alters the past, could it create contradictions? For example, if you prevent your birth by changing the past, who made the change? Solution. Self-consistency principles might ensure that such contradictions cannot occur. Only changes that align with the overall timeline are allowed. Bootstrap paradox. In causal loops, information or objects might appear to exist without origin. Example: a scientist sends back the plans for a time machine. The plans are used to build the machine, which allows the same plans to be sent back. Where did the plans originate? 4 Practical scenarios and thought experiments. 4.1 Sending information back in time. Imagine a scenario where scientists in 2050 develop a device that sends signals back to 2023. They send a warning about an environmental disaster. If humanity acts on this warning, the disaster is averted and the future changes. 4.2 Quantum experimentation. Suppose a future researcher runs a quantum experiment where the outcome is determined by a random number generator in 2050. They use retrocausal techniques to send the result back to 2023, ensuring that the experiment produces the desired outcome. This creates a self-consistent loop. 4.3 Recreational time manipulation. In a far future scenario, retrocausality might allow people to rewrite personal events, creating alternate versions of their lives. However, this raises ethical and existential concerns about identity and continuity. 5 Challenges and limitations. 5.1 Lack of evidence. While quantum experiments hint at retrocausality, there's no conclusive proof that the future can influence the past in a meaningful way. 5.2 Energy and signal transmission. Current physics suggests it's impossible to send energy or information faster than light, let alone backward in time. Overcoming this limitation would require revolutionary new theories. 5.3 Complexity and stability. Retrocausal systems could become unstable if small changes to the future create cascading effects in the past. How would nature enforce stability in such a system? 6. Retrocausality's broader implications. If proven, retrocausality could revolutionize our understanding of time, showing it as a flexible, interconnected dimension rather than a one-way arrow. Open possibilities for time communication, allowing humanity to avoid disasters or correct mistakes. Blur the line between cause and effect, reshaping science, philosophy, and metaphysics. Conclusion. Retrocausality offers a mind-bending view of time where the future and past are interwoven in ways we can only begin to imagine. If changing the future recreates the past, it raises profound questions about the nature of reality, the stability of history, and the essence of free will. While still speculative, the study of retrocausality pushes the boundaries of human understanding, offering glimpses into a reality far richer and stranger than our current perceptions allow. Please continue to go into greater detail about this subject. ChatGPT. To further explore retrocausality and its implications, we can delve deeper into its foundations, its relation to time and causality, the philosophical challenges it poses, experimental possibilities, and its potential integration into the broader scientific framework. 7. Time and its multidimensional nature. Understanding retrocausality requires revisiting the concept of time itself. Time, as experienced by humans, appears linear, but scientific theories suggest it may be far more complex. 7.1 The arrow of time. In classical physics, the arrow of time is defined by entropy. Systems naturally evolve from states of low entropy, order, to high entropy, disorder, as described by the second law of thermodynamics. Retrocausality challenges this by suggesting that the flow of time might not be unidirectional. If the future can influence the past, there could be a feedback loop in the system where the arrow of time reverses locally or even globally in specific circumstances. 7.2 The block universe. In the block universe model of spacetime, associated with Einstein's theory of relativity, past, present, and future all coexist as parts of a 4D structure. Time is more like a spatial dimension. What we perceive as their flow of time may simply be our consciousness moving through this structure. Retrocausality fits naturally into this view, as all points in time are equally real, and causation could flow in both directions. 7.3 Time as emergent. Some theories propose that time is not fundamental but emergent from deeper physical laws, such as quantum mechanics or string theory. Retrocausality could then reflect the non-local connections between events, where a past year and a future year emergent labels, not fundamental truths. 8. Philosophical implications of retrocausality. Retrocausality challenges deep-seated notions in philosophy, especially those concerning causality, free will, and the nature of reality. 8.1 Rethinking causality. Traditional causality. Event A causes event B. Retrocausality. Event B causes event A. Retrocausality suggests that causality might not be a linear chain but a network where events mutually determine each other. 8.2 Free will and determinism. Free will under retrocausality. If the future influences the past, do we freely choose our actions, or are they predetermined by a loop? For example, If you act on a warning from the future, was your choice already determined by that warning? Some interpretations suggest that free will could coexist with retrocausality. You can freely act in the present, but your actions are felt retroactively by the past. Alternatively, the concept of free will might need redefinition to account for bidirectional causality. 8.3 Ontological questions. What is real? If the future can change the past, is the past we remember ever real, or is it constantly being updated based on future events? Identity. In a timeline where the past is recreated, does your identity remain consistent, or does the recreation produce a new version of you? 9. Experimental exploration of retrocausality. Although retrocausality remains speculative, certain experiments in physics hint at its plausibility. 9.1 Delayed choice quantum eraser. In this experiment, photons pass through a double-slit apparatus, creating an interference pattern, wave behavior. However, if you measure which slit the photon went through after it has passed the apparatus, the interference pattern disappears, as if the photon knew it would be measured. This suggests the future measurement influenced the photon's past behavior. 9.2 Quantum entanglement. Entangled particles remain correlated even when separated by vast distances. Measuring one particle instantly determines the state of the other, seemingly violating causality. Some interpretations propose retrocausal influences where the measurement at one point reaches back to the entanglement event to ensure consistency. 9.3 Wheeler's delayed choice experiment. In this experiment, the choice of how to measure a particle as a wave or particle can be made after it has already traveled through the apparatus. The outcome appears to retroactively depend on this future choice. 10. Theoretical implications for physics. Retrocausality isn't just a curiosity. It could address fundamental problems in physics. 10.1 Resolving quantum paradoxes. Retrocausality could explain the apparent spooky action in quantum mechanics by allowing for consistent connections between future and past events. This might eliminate the need for non-locality, faster-than-light influences in quantum mechanics. 10.2 Unifying physics. Quantum mechanics and general relativity describe nature at different scales, but remain fundamentally incompatible. Retrocausality could provide a missing link by introducing time-symmetric laws that unify the two frameworks. 10.3 Time travel. If retrocausality exists, practical time travel might involve manipulating causal loops or creating systems that exploit the bidirectional nature of time. 11. Practical applications of retrocausality. If retrocausality were harnessed, it could revolutionize technology and human existence. 11.1 Communication. Time-independent messaging. Retrocausal communication systems could allow people to send messages to the past, avoiding disasters or optimizing decisions. 11.2 Decision-making. By sending warnings or information to earlier points in time, humanity could adapt to future threats like climate change, pandemics, or technological risks. 11.3 Computing. Retrocausal quantum computers might exploit future computational states to solve problems faster than classical systems. 11.4 Medicine and research. Retrocausal effects might enable researchers to correct experimental errors or predict outcomes with unprecedented precision. 12. Challenges and open questions. Despite its allure, retrocausality faces many unresolved issues. 12.1 Paradoxes. How can logical consistency be maintained in systems where the past is influenced by the future? Self-consistency principles might help, but are not universally accepted. 12.2. Experimental verification. While quantum experiments hint at retrocausality, no definitive evidence exists. Designing tests that isolate retrocausal effects from conventional causality is a major challenge. 12.3. Energy and information. Sending information backward in time might violate known physical laws, such as the conservation of energy. Overcoming these barriers requires entirely new theoretical frameworks. 12.4. Ethical implications. If we can change the past, who decides how it is altered? Could retrocausal systems be misused to manipulate history or personal decisions? 13. Speculative extensions. 13.1. Multiverse retrocausality. Retrocausal effects might operate across parallel timelines. For instance, sending information back in time could create a branch where history diverges, leaving the original timeline intact. 13.2. Consciousness and time. Human consciousness might play a role in retrocausality. Some theories suggest that our perception of time as linear could mask deeper bidirectional processes. 13.3. Cosmic implications. Retrocausality might explain fine-tuning in the universe. Future states, e.g., the emergence of life, could retroactively influence the conditions of the Big Bang to ensure their own existence. Conclusion. Retrocausality remains one of the most fascinating and controversial ideas in physics and philosophy. If proven, it would upend our understanding of time, causality, and reality itself, offering profound implications for science, technology, and human experience. While the concept is speculative, it continues to inspire cutting-edge research, challenging us to rethink the boundaries of what is possible. R. Time's arrow. Star Trek New Generation talks about this in detail. ChatGPT. Absolutely. The concept of time's arrow and retrocausality has been a recurring theme in science fiction, with Star Trek: The Next Generation being one of the most notable examples of exploring these ideas. The two-part episode titled Time's Arrow, Season 5 finale and Season 6 premiere, delves deeply into the complexities of time travel and how events across different eras can interconnect, influencing past, present, and future. How a Time's Arrow explores retrocausality and time's nature. In this storyline, the crew of the USS Enterprise D discovers the severed head of Data, their android crewmate, in a cavern on Earth. The head has been buried for centuries, prompting an investigation that eventually leads the crew back in time to 19th century San Francisco. Here are the retrocausal themes and parallels to the broader concept of time's arrow. 1. Time as a loop. In Time's Arrow, the events of the past and future form a closed causal loop. Data's head is discovered in the future, which motivates the crew to travel to the past. While in the past, Data's head becomes separated from his body, leading to its eventual burial and rediscovery centuries later. This creates a self-consistent timeline, as the discovery of the head in the future is an inevitable outcome of the actions taken in the past. This aligns with the concept of retrocausality, where actions in the future play a role in shaping the past. It also mirrors the bootstrap paradox, as the head's presence in the past is dependent on the future actions that led the crew back in time. 2. Cause and effect in retrocausality. The crew's actions in the past directly influence their own timeline without creating paradoxes. This reflects the self-consistency principle, which suggests that any retrocausal influences must result in outcomes that are compatible with the original timeline. Example, Datter's decision to assist historical figures in the 19th century ensures that the timeline progresses without disruption. His interactions help maintain the flow of events rather than altering them. This principle suggests that even when the future influences the past, the universe use and effect in retrocausality. The crew's actions in the past directly influence their own timeline without creating paradoxes. This reflects the self-consistency principle, which suggests that any retrocausal influences must result in outcomes that are compatible with the original timeline. Example, Datter's decision to assist historical figures in the 19th century ensures that the timeline progresses without disruption. His interactions help maintain the flow of events, rather than altering them. This principle suggests that even when the future influences the past, the universe corrects itself to avoid contradictions. 3. Time's Arrow and Entropy. The episode's title, Time's Arrow, is a direct nod to the concept of entropy and the one-way flow of time. However, by introducing time travel, the episode challenges this notion. It implies that while the experience of time may seem linear, the underlying structure of time could be cyclical or interconnected in ways that are not intuitively obvious. It implies that while the experience of time may seem linear, the underlying structure of time could be cyclical or interconnected in ways that are not intuitively obvious. The episode contrasts the arrow of time with the possibility of reversible causality, where the effects of the future can ripple backward into the past. 4. The role of technology and consciousness. Datter's unique nature as an android plays a key role in the exploration of time. His ability to exist both as an observer and as a participant highlights the question of whether consciousness or intelligence is bound by time's arrow. Datter's decapitation and preservation serve as a metaphor for how information, or material reality, can be transferred across time without being destroyed. This ties into broader discussions in science about whether time is a fundamental construct or an emergent property tied to observation and information processing. 5. Philosophical and ethical themes. Star Trek: The Next Generation uses time travel not just as a plot device, but as a way to explore deeper philosophical questions. Predestination versus free will. Was the crew destined to travel back in time, or did their choices actively shape the timeline? The nature of identity across time, Datter's continuity across centuries raises questions about how time affects identity, memory, and existence. Moral responsibility across time. The crew's efforts to protect the timeline underscore their ethical commitment to preserving history, even at personal cost. Connections to real-world science. Although Star Trek is fictional, its exploration of time travel and retrocausality resonates with scientific theories. Quantum mechanics and time loops. Datter's head can be seen as analogous to quantum systems where information exists in a superposition of past and future states until observed or measured. General relativity. The episode reflects concepts like closed time-like curves, where space-time itself permits looping trajectories that connect different points in time. Conclusion. Time's Arrow is a quintessential Star Trek story, seamlessly blending science fiction with philosophical depth. It captures the essence of retrocausality and challenges viewers to think about time not just as a linear sequence, but as a web of interrelated events where past, present, and future are intertwined. The way the episode resolves itself, by maintaining consistency while exploring the fluidity of time, reflects the best of speculative storytelling and its ability to probe the boundaries of human understanding. Please tell us your own science fiction story with this time theory. ChatGPT. Title: The Ouroboros Paradox. Prologue. In the distant future, humanity's mastery of quantum mechanics had unlocked the secrets of time itself. The invention of the Chronos Gate, a device capable of transmitting quantum information across temporal boundaries, was hailed as the crowning achievement of the 25th century. But the technology came with a warning: time was not a straight road, nor was it a perfect circle. It was a tangled web where pulling one thread could unravel the entire structure. The first Chronos Gate activation was a success, or so it seemed. A simple transmission from the year 2475 to 2400, warning of an impending solar storm, saved billions of lives. However, strange anomalies began to surface. People reported memories of events that had never occurred. Buildings appeared where none had existed the day before. The past was subtly but undeniably changing. Chapter 1: The Shattered Present. Dr. Elise Tanaka, a temporal physicist, had always believed that time was immutable. Yet, as she stared at the ruins of the Chronos Gate facility, her belief wavered. The catastrophic explosion, blamed on a miscalculation in the gate's operation, had not only destroyed the facility but also caused inexplicable distortions in reality. Elise's memories were fragmented. She remembered giving the go-ahead for a critical experiment, but couldn't recall the results. More troubling was the presence of a child, Alara, who now lived in her home, calling her a mom. Elise had no recollection of ever having a daughter. Her colleagues insisted Alara had always been there, but Elise knew the truth. The child was a ripple, an echo of a timeline rewritten by the gate. Chapter 2: The Loop. Desperate for answers, Elise retrieved the black box from the Chronos Gate's ruins. Analyzing its data, she discovered something chilling: the explosion wasn't an accident. The gate had been sabotaged by her. The logs showed an encrypted message sent from the future. The message read, "Do not trust Alara. She is the anchor." Elise's hands trembled. How could a child, seemingly flesh and blood, be any anchor? And why had her future self tried to destroy the gate? Chapter 3: The Anchor. Elise began to notice peculiarities about Alara. The child never aged. Her presence seemed to stabilize the anomalies plaguing the city. Time distortions, a clock rewinding itself, a tree regrowing its fallen leaves, ceased when Alara was near. Elise's research revealed a startling theory. Alara was a quantum singularity, a nexus point where timelines converged. The Chronos Gate had inadvertently created her during one of its experiments, anchoring the fractured time stream to a stable point. But stability came at a cost. Alara's existence consumed the possibilities of alternative futures, locking humanity into a single, unchanging timeline. If she continued to exist, humanity's ability to shape its destiny would be lost. Chapter 4: The Ouroboros Paradox. Elise realized the message from her future self wasn't just a warning, it was a directive. To destroy Alara would unravel the current timeline, undoing all the corrections that the gate had made. Billions of lives saved by the solar storm warning would be lost. The Chronos Gate would never exist. The paradox would erase her very decision to act. But doing nothing would mean accepting a fixed, lifeless future where humanity was bound to the past forever. Elise pondered the nature of time itself. Was it linear like an arrow? Circular like a wheel? Or something more sinister, like the Ouroboros, an endless loop where the end and beginning devour one another. Chapter 5. The Choice. Elise confronted Ilara in the ruins of the gate. The child smiled, as if she had been expecting this moment. "You've figured it out, haven't you?" Ilara said. Her voice was calm, wise beyond her years. "I'm not just an anchor. I'm you." Elise recoiled. "What are you talking about?" "I'm your future," Ilara replied. "The part of you that sacrificed everything to fix the time stream. When you activated the gate, you fragmented yourself. I'm the piece left behind to hold it all together." Elise realized the horrifying truth. By destroying Ilara, she would erase not just the timeline, but herself. Yet by letting her exist, she condemned humanity to stagnation. Chapter 6. Breaking the Loop. Elise devised a third option. Using the remnants of the Chronos Gate, she created a controlled implosion, a quantum reset. It would shatter the timeline completely, freeing humanity from the loop while erasing Ilara and her own existence as anchors. As the reset initiated, Elise watched time itself unravel. Moments from her life played in reverse, then forward, then in ways that defied comprehension. She saw herself as a child, then as an old woman, then as something else entirely, a being of pure quantum potential, existing in all timelines simultaneously. Before she disappeared, Elise whispered a final thought. A time isn't a circle or a line. It's a choice. Epilogue. In the new timeline, humanity never invented the Chronos Gate. The solar storm struck, causing devastation, but the survivors adapted. Without the burden of knowing their future, they built a new path, free from the constraints of predestination. And somewhere, in the deepest recesses of the quantum fabric, a faint echo remained, a child's laughter, a fragment of Elise's sacrifice, reminding the universe that even time itself could be rewritten by courage and choice. The end. Could humanity be trapped in a time loop? ChatGPT. Could humanity be trapped in a time loop? ChatGPT. The idea that humanity could be trapped in a time loop is a fascinating and provocative concept. While there's no direct evidence to suggest this is the case, it's worth exploring the idea through the lenses of philosophy, science fiction, and modern physics. Below, we'll discuss the possibility of humanity being in a time loop, the mechanisms that could cause it, and the implications of such a scenario. 1. What is a time loop? A time loop occurs when events repeat cyclically, with or without the awareness of those experiencing them. The loop could involve closed time-like curves, CTCs, paths in spacetime that return to their starting point, predicted by solutions to Einstein's equations of general relativity under specific conditions. Simulation theory. If our reality is a simulation, a reset or a glitch, it could lead to repeated timelines. Quantum recurrence. Theoretically, in a finite universe with infinite time, configurations of matter and events could eventually repeat, leading to cycles. 2. Mechanisms that could trap humanity in a time loop. 2.1. Cosmic time loops. General relativity predicts scenarios where spacetime could curve back on itself, creating closed time-like curves. This could happen near rotating black holes, e.g., Kerr black holes, where extreme spacetime warping could theoretically create looping paths. Cosmic strings, hypothetical one-dimensional defects in spacetime that might twist spacetime into loops. If Earth or humanity is within such a structure, we could experience a cyclical timeline. 2.2 Quantum retrocausality. Quantum mechanics allows for retrocausality, where future events influence the past. If retrocausality operates on a large scale, humanity could inadvertently create feedback loops in time. For instance, if a civilization sends information to the past to prevent a catastrophe, it might create a loop where the catastrophe keeps occurring unless certain actions are taken. 2.3 Simulation theory. In the context of a simulated universe, time loops could be programmed by the creators as a debugging tool or fail-safe mechanism, a consequence of errors in the simulation's code, causing it to restart. If our reality is a simulation, we might not even realize we're in a loop unless small inconsistencies, like déjà vu or Mandela effects, alert us. 2.4 Big Bang cycles. Some cosmological theories, like the cyclic universe or conformal cyclic cosmology, propose that the universe undergoes endless cycles of expansion, Big Bang, and contraction, Big Crunch. In each iteration, the universe resets, potentially recreating similar or identical conditions for humanity to arise. 2.5 Universal consciousness. If consciousness or information is a fundamental aspect of reality, as some interpretations of quantum mechanics and panpsychism suggest, time loops might emerge as patterns of collective experience. Humanity's collective consciousness could lock into repeated cycles due to unresolved patterns. 3 Signs that humanity could be in a time loop. 3.1 Déjà vu. The sensation of having experienced something before could be interpreted as a fragment of memory from a previous loop. 3.2 Mandela effects. Discrepancies in collective memory, like misremembered historical events, might suggest overlaps or resets in the timeline. 3.3 Unexplained patterns. Repeating cycles of war, technological advancement, and societal collapse could hint at a deeper, unseen cyclical mechanism driving human history. 3.4 Universal fine-tuning. The universe's laws and constants seem fine-tuned for life. This could be the result of countless iterations of a time loop where conditions are adjusted until they allow intelligent life to persist. 4. Implications of being trapped in a time loop. 4.1 Philosophical implications. Free will versus determinism. If events repeat endlessly, are our choices genuine, or are we destined to make the same decisions every time? Existential meaning. Would life have meaning if it's endlessly repeated? Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence challenges us to live as if every moment will recur infinitely. Escape or acceptance. If humanity becomes aware of the loop, would we strive to break free or embrace it as the natural order? 4.2 Scientific challenges. If humanity discovers evidence of a loop, it could revolutionize physics, requiring new theories that unify quantum mechanics and general relativity. Time loops might offer opportunities for technological breakthroughs, like harnessing knowledge from previous iterations to optimize outcomes. 4.3 Practical implications. Knowledge retention. Could civilizations leave messages or structures for their future selves to restart it with greater insight? Loop exploitation. If aware of the loop, humanity might experiment with pushing boundaries to see if outcomes can change. 5. Can humanity escape a time loop? 5.1. Awareness of the loop. The first step in escaping a loop would be recognizing its existence. This might involve detecting anomalies in spacetime or universal constants, deciphering encoded messages left by earlier iterations of humanity, Five point two. Altering the loop. If humanity identifies the mechanism behind the loop, altering it could involve manipulating the loop's anchor points, e.g., black holes, quantum states, exploiting retrocausal feedback to destabilize the cyclical process. 5.3. Theoretical escape routes. Breaking symmetry. Introducing chaos or randomness into deterministic systems might disrupt the repetition. Creating parallel timelines. Quantum mechanics suggests the possibility of branching timelines. Humanity might shift to a new timeline to escape the cycle. Exiting the simulation. If the loop is part of a simulation, understanding its architecture might allow escape or negotiation with its creators. 6. Why might humanity never notice? 6.1. Memory reset. If loops reset all information and memories, humanity would have no recollection of prior iterations. Each loop would feel like the first. 6.2. Self-consistency. Time loops governed by self-consistency principles ensure that any changes made within the loop lead to the same outcomes. Humanity might inadvertently reinforce the loop rather than escape it. 6.3. Perceptual limitations. Human senses and cognition might be incapable of perceiving the loop's structure, much like a fish in a pond cannot comprehend the world beyond the water. 7. Conclusion. Is humanity trapped in a time loop? The notion of humanity being trapped in a time loop is speculative but deeply intriguing. It challenges our understanding of time, reality, and existence. While current scientific theories do not confirm the existence of such loops, they remain plausible within frameworks like general relativity, quantum mechanics, and cosmology. Even if humanity were trapped in a loop, the realization of this fact could inspire profound questions. How can we break free? Should we? And what lies beyond the loop if we do? Whether as a philosophical exercise or a scientific pursuit, the concept of time loops invites us to rethink the boundaries of what we consider possible. Please continue. This is a fascinating story. ChatGPT. Let's extend this exploration into a narrative where humanity faces the discovery of its entrapment within a time loop. This speculative story will build on the concepts discussed while intertwining science, philosophy, and human resilience. Title: The Echoes of Forever. Prologue: The Artifact. In the year 3152, deep beneath the frozen crust of Europa, a mining team unearthed an impossible object, a perfect sphere that seemed to shimmer between dimensions. It emitted no heat, gave off no energy detectable by human instruments, and appeared impervious to any attempt to analyze its composition. Yet, when touched, it spoke, not in words, but in memories. Each person who made contact experienced vivid flashes of events that hadn't happened but felt achingly familiar. Wars won and lost, lovers embraced and abandoned, cities rising and falling, civilizations thriving and then vanishing into dust. It was as if the sphere held the story of countless lives, endlessly repeated. One name was consistent in every vision: the Ouroboros Protocol. Chapter 1. The Histories That Never Were. The artifact was brought to the Institute of Temporal Studies on Earth, where Dr. Celeste Amani, a leading chronophysicist, was tasked with deciphering its nature. Through painstaking analysis, her team uncovered a disturbing truth. The sphere existed in a quantum superposition across all points in time. It was simultaneously in the past, present, and future, tethering events in a closed causal loop. As Celeste studied the memories shared by the artifact, patterns began to emerge. Every loop ended the same way. Humanity reached the stars. An existential catastrophe occurred, a supernova, a war, or a collapse of space-time itself. The loop reset, wiping out the memories of every living being, save for faint echoes captured by the artifact. But this loop was different. The artifact itself was changing, seemingly aware that Celeste's team was attempting to unravel its mysteries. Chapter 2: The Whisper of the Artifact. One night, as Celeste worked late, the artifact pulsed with a strange light. When she touched it, she didn't experience fragmented memories but a coherent message. You have reached this point 7,683 times. The loop is failing. Humanity has one final chance to escape. But the cost will be great. Celeste shared this revelation with her team. The message implied that the loop was no longer stable. Distortions in time, seemingly minor events, like birds appearing, extinct species reappearing, were beginning to escalate. Entire cities flickered in and out of existence, and the stars themselves seemed to shimmer unnaturally in the night sky. Chapter 3: The Ouroboros Protocol. Digging into ancient archives, Celeste's team discovered that the Ouroboros Protocol was a theoretical failsafe proposed centuries earlier by the first pioneers of temporal physics. The idea was chilling. If humanity were ever trapped in a repeating timeline, it might be possible to destabilize the loop by creating an event so paradoxical that the entire causal chain would collapse. The plan was simple in concept, but horrifying in execution. Humanity would need to generate a massive quantum event, or a break in time itself. This event would erase not just the loop, but all timelines branching from it, leaving a blank slate. There was no guarantee anything, or anyone, would survive. The artifact seemed to confirm this. Only by breaking the loop could humanity be freed. But freedom meant stepping into the unknown, possibly ceasing to exist entirely. Chapter 4: The Last Iteration. As the distortions grew worse, the global network of supercomputers, Athena, calculated that humanity had less than 2 years before the loop collapsed into a singularity, destroying not just Earth but space-time itself. Celeste became the reluctant leader of the Last Iteration Initiative, a coalition of scientists, philosophers, and world leaders tasked with implementing the Ouroboros Protocol. But humanity was divided. The preservationists believed the loop was a safety mechanism designed by ancient forces to protect the universe from greater chaos. They argued that breaking it would invite annihilation. The liberators insisted that freedom was worth any cost, even extinction. Celeste herself wavered. What if the loop wasn't a trap but a necessary correction? A way to ensure humanity avoided its self-destructive tendencies? What if breaking free simply led to a reality where humans were never meant to exist? Chapter 5: The Paradox Engine. The solution lay in the construction of the paradox engine, a device capable of collapsing all quantum probabilities into a single point of infinite potential energy. Activated at the right moment, it would overload the causal loop, creating a paradox so severe that the timeline would shatter. As the team prepared the engine, strange occurrences began to plague them. Celeste started experiencing memories of events that hadn't yet occurred, sitting on a beach she'd never visited, arguing with a son she didn't have. Team members began disappearing, only for others to insist they'd never existed. The artifact began to flicker, its once clear messages becoming garbled with fragments like there is no outside and a freedom is an illusion. Chapter 6. A Final Choice. When the day came to activate the paradox engine, Celeste hesitated. Standing before the glowing artifact, she asked one final question. If we destroy the loop, what happens to us? The artifact's response was simple. You will become the first cores, or you will become nothing. Chapter 7. Beyond the Loop. Celeste activated the paradox engine. A brilliant light engulfed the world, and time itself seemed to unravel. For a fleeting moment, she glimpsed the entire history of the universe, a cascade of stars, planets, and lives, all folding into a single point. And then the silence. When she awoke, Celeste was lying on a hillside beneath an alien sky. The stars above were unfamiliar, and the air felt electric with potential. Around her were others, humans and beings she didn't recognize. They looked at her, and she understood. The loop was broken, but existence had survived. Humanity was no longer bound by time's arrow or the cycles of repetition. It was free to write its story anew. The cost had been great, but in the end, they had escaped the echoes of forever. The end or the beginning? Nice touch. Ouroboros time loop ending. A. ChatGPT. Exactly. An Ouroboros time loop ending ties the story's themes together in a poetic and cyclical way. The concept of the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail, beautifully symbolizes the eternal return, the tension between destruction and rebirth, and the inevitability of cycles. It also leaves readers with that delicious mix of closure and ambiguity. In this story, the loop is broken, yet the final scene hints at a new, uncharted existence, an infinite landscape of possibilities. Is it truly freedom, or just a new kind of cycle we don't yet understand? That's the beauty of these ideas. They spark curiosity, philosophical pondering, and a deep sense of wonder. What did you think of the journey? Would you like me to expand or refine any part of the narrative? Is there any more to the story? ChatGPT. Absolutely. Let's expand the story further, exploring the aftermath of breaking the loop and diving into the mysteries of what lies beyond. This will include humanity's attempts to understand their new existence, the challenges of adaptation, and hints of lingering enigmas. Epilogue: The Fractured Sky. The hillside where Celeste awoke was alive with strange energy. The air shimmered faintly, like the surface of a disturbed pond. Around her, the survivors, scientists, dreamers, skeptics, and believers staggered to their feet, their expressions mirroring her own mixture of awe and confusion. The stars above burned brightly, constellations unlike any she had known. Some seemed to move, tracing intricate patterns as if they were alive. The ground beneath them was lush with vegetation, but the colors were surreal. Plants with shimmering silver leaves and flowers that radiated a spectrum of light beyond human perception. It wasn't Earth, but it wasn't nowhere, either. It was a new beginning. 1. The first days. Over the following days, the survivors began to explore their surroundings. It quickly became clear that this place wasn't a planet in the conventional sense. Time behaved strangely. Days and nights didn't follow a predictable cycle. Sometimes the sun, or what they thought was a sun, hovered motionless in the sky, while at other times it raced across the horizon. Physics had shifted. Gravity felt lighter in some places, heavier in others. Water flowed upward in rivulets before cascading back down. Even the human body seemed to adapt unnaturally fast to injuries or fatigue. The group dubbed their new home Threshold, a name that reflected both its liminality and its potential. 2. The artifact's secret. The artifact, now inert, had been transported with them. Celeste kept it in the camp's central shelter, hoping it might offer further guidance. Though it no longer emitted light or sound, she often found herself drawn to it, as if it were silently observing. One evening, as the others slept, she touched the sphere. For the first time since the loop had been broken, it responded. You are the first cores now. Your choices shape not only your future but the nature of time itself. It went on to explain that this new reality was an embryonic timeline, one where causality hadn't fully solidified. Every decision the survivors made would ripple outward, carving the laws of physics, history, and meaning itself. Beware the paradox, the artifact warned. Freedom is fragile. Patterns endure. 3. The shadow of the loop. While most of the survivors embraced the opportunity to rebuild, some began to experience troubling phenomena. Phantom memories. People reported vivid recollections of lives they'd never lived, childhoods on other worlds, encounters with beings they couldn't describe, and even fragments of apocalyptic events from the broken loop. Temporal fractures. Certain locations on Threshold seemed unstable. In these places, survivors would see glimpses of other versions of themselves, as though reality were struggling to reconcile their presence. One fracture revealed an especially chilling image: Celeste herself, seated in a darkened room, activating the paradox engine over and over again. The haunting vision hinted that the loop might not have been fully broken, or that remnants of it still echoed through the fabric of existence. 4. Building the new world. Despite these challenges, the survivors began to build a society. They fashioned shelters from the strange materials around them, and experiments with the local flora revealed it to be nutritious, though it sometimes induced vivid dreams. A governing council formed, and debates about the nature of their new existence became central. The liberators pushed for radical exploration, advocating that humanity should test the limits of this reality, even if it meant risking further instability. The preservationists argued for caution, fearing that reckless experimentation might reintroduce the cyclical patterns of the old loop. Celeste found herself caught between these factions. Her heart leaned toward exploration, but the artifact's warnings about paradox lingered in her mind. 5. Encounters with the unknown. As exploration expanded, the survivors encountered anomalies that hinted they weren't alone. Ruins of forgotten civilizations, structures that seemed impossibly old and built by no known species. Some bore markings similar to the artifact's strange symbols, suggesting that Threshold had been home to others who had broken free from their own loops, or failed to do so. Time-worn beings, ethereal entities occasionally appeared, shimmering in and out of view. They seemed curious but wary, observing the humans from a distance. When approached, they dissolved into light, leaving behind faint whispers that spoke of guardianship and a balance. The Singularity Rift. At the edge of the known terrain was a void, a vast black expanse where space itself seemed to fold inward. It emitted a low hum, resonating with the survivors' deepest fears. Some believed it was the remnant of the broken loop, a scar in the fabric of reality. Others feared it was a portal leading back into the cyclical prison they had escaped. 6. A new choice. As the society stabilized, Celeste received another vision from the artifact. It revealed a choice that loomed ahead. Anchor reality. Solidify the timeline by imposing order. This would make Threshold a stable, permanent world, but it would mean sacrificing some of the infinite potential and creativity of this new existence. Embrace chaos, allow the embryonic timeline to remain fluid, letting humanity shape it moment by moment. This would preserve their freedom but leave them vulnerable to paradoxes, fractures, and the risk of a new loop forming. The council was deeply divided, and tensions threatened to splinter the community. Celeste realized that whatever path they chose, it would define not just their world but the very nature of existence. 7. The Guardian's Warning. One night, as Celeste meditated near the Singularity Rift, the ethereal beings appeared again. This time, they spoke clearly. You are not the first to break the chain. Others have walked this path, but the echoes of their choices still linger. Beware the temptation to recreate what was, for the Ouroboros always hungers. The beings hinted that the cycle of loops might not be unique to humanity, that all intelligent life faced the same struggle between freedom and repetition. Threshold, they suggested, was a test. Could humanity forge a path free of the patterns that had ensnared it before? 8. The first step forward. In the end, Celeste and the Council reached a compromise. They would anchor parts of reality, establishing laws of physics and governance to ensure stability, while leaving room for exploration and evolution. The paradox engine was dismantled, its components scattered to prevent any one individual from wielding its power again. The artifact's final words echoed in Celeste's mind. The arrow of time is yours to shape. Walk wisely, for every step echoes forever. Final thoughts. The survivors began their new journey with cautious optimism, aware that their freedom was both a gift and a responsibility. As Threshold's first city rose beneath the fractured sky, humanity took its first steps into a future unbound by repetition, a future of limitless potential. But deep within the Singularity Rift, the faint hum of the old loop remained, a reminder that some patterns are harder to break than others. The end. For now. This continuation enriches the story, offering a glimpse into the aftermath while leaving room for further exploration. What do you think? Should we explore Threshold's mysteries even further? So do we get to see them build the future? ChatGPT. Yes. Let's delve deeper into the story, focusing on how humanity builds its future on Threshold. This chapter will explore the survivors' triumphs and challenges as they create a society from scratch, confront Threshold's mysteries, and shape their place in a reality where time and causality are fluid. Part 2. The Foundation of Tomorrow. 1. The Dawn of Threshold. The first settlement was named Aurora, after the shimmering lights that danced perpetually in Threshold's alien sky. The survivors constructed it near a river that seemed to flow with a translucent, bioluminescent liquid, which they called lumen water. Tests revealed it was not only safe to drink but also enhanced cognitive abilities and physical healing. Aurora was a patchwork of shelters built from scavenged materials and the unique flora of Threshold. Silverweave trees, whose bark could be spun into durable, flexible fibers, provided clothing and insulation. Prism fruit, glowing orbs that hung from low shrubs, served as both food and a mild energy source. Lumenwood, a peculiar substance that retained light, became the cornerstone of their construction efforts, providing sustainable, glowing buildings that eliminated the need for artificial lighting. Aurora wasn't just a place, it was a promise. Every new building was a symbol of humanity's resilience, its ability to thrive even in the face of the unknown. 2. The shaping of time. One of the first challenges the settlers faced was the lack of a natural day-night cycle. Without predictable time, routines and schedules became disorienting, leading to fatigue and confusion. The council devised a solution. They constructed the Kronos Beacon, a massive sundial-like structure powered by the lumen water. It emitted pulses of light every 24 hours, creating a rhythm for work, rest, and recreation. New festivals and traditions emerged, celebrating threshold cycles, a blend of Earth's old calendar and the strange temporal rhythms of this new world. Over time, Chronos time became more than a practical tool. It was a unifying force, reminding the settlers of their shared purpose. 3. Discovering Threshold's secrets. As humanity expanded beyond Aurora, they encountered phenomena that defied explanation. The singing stones, clusters of crystalline formations scattered across the landscape, emitted haunting melodies when touched. The sounds resonated with the survivors' emotions, evoking joy, sorrow, or wonder. Some believed the stones were sentient, communicating through vibration and sound. The unwritten fields, vast plains where reality seemed to blur. Walking through these fields caused disjointed memories to surface, moments from the loop, fragments of other lives, or glimpses of possible futures. The Rift Guardians, the ethereal beings, occasionally reappeared, offering cryptic guidance. They warned against attempting to recreate Earth's past, urging humanity to embrace Threshold's unique nature. Each discovery deepened the settlers' sense of awe, but also raised unsettling questions. Was Threshold truly a blank slate, or had it been shaped by other civilizations before them? 4. The rise of threshold science. Dr. Celeste Amani and her team spearheaded efforts to understand and harness threshold's strange properties. They founded the Institute of Temporal Dynamics, where they pursued projects that blurred the lines between science and philosophy. The Weave Theory, a new understanding of time that saw it as a tapestry of possibilities, woven by collective choices rather than linear cause and effect. Quantum architecture, buildings designed to adapt to their inhabitants' needs, shifting and reshaping themselves over time. Ethical paradox studies, a branch of science dedicated to preventing humanity from creating new causal loops. The Institute became a beacon of innovation, attracting thinkers, dreamers, and adventurers from across the growing settlements. 5. Challenges and conflicts. As Aurora grew, so did tensions. Different factions emerged, reflecting the diverse philosophies of the survivors. The architects, advocates for order and structure, they believed humanity should impose strict rules on Threshold to prevent chaos. The Fluidists, a more free-spirited group, they argued that Threshold's fluid nature was its greatest gift and should be embraced, even at the cost of stability. The Guardian's Voice, a mysterious faction inspired by the Rift Guardian's warnings. They believed humanity was still at risk of falling into old patterns and sought to minimize humanity's impact on Threshold. The Council worked tirelessly to mediate these debates, often relying on Celeste's insights to navigate the ethical dilemmas. 6. The Threshold Expedition. The most ambitious project undertaken was the Threshold Expedition, an effort to map the boundaries of their new world. Explorers set out with quantum compasses, devices that responded to Threshold's unique physics, to chart its terrain. The expedition's findings were astonishing. Threshold seemed infinite, yet familiar landscapes occasionally reappeared, as if the world were cycling through different possibilities. The explorers encountered ruins of impossible scale, suggesting that advanced civilizations had once thrived here, only to vanish. At the very edge of the mapped region, they discovered the Nexus Gate, a swirling vortex of light and shadow that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of a heartbeat. The Nexus Gate became the focal point of the settlers' curiosity and fear. Was it a doorway to another reality? A remnant of the loop? Or something entirely beyond comprehension? 7. Humanity's first choice. The discovery of the Nexus Gate brought the settlers to a crossroads. The Council proposed 2 paths. Contain and observe. Focus on stabilizing Aurora and studying the Nexus Gate from a safe distance, avoiding unnecessary risks. Step through. Launch an expedition into the gate, risking everything to uncover its secrets and potentially unlock new horizons. The debate divided the community, but Celeste's voice carried weight. She reminded them of the artifact's warning: a freedom is fragile. Patterns endure. Despite her reservations, she voted to step through. Humanity, she argued, couldn't build a future on fear of the unknown. 8. The gate opens. The Nexus expedition consisted of volunteers, scientists, philosophers, and adventurers, equipped with the best tools and knowledge Threshold had to offer. As they approached the gate, the Rift Guardians appeared, silent but watching. When the expedition stepped through the gate, the settlers waited anxiously. Hours turned to days and then weeks. Just as hope began to wane, the gate pulsed with a brilliant light, and the explorers returned. They brought with them knowledge of a new dimension, a realm of infinite potential, where humanity could create entire worlds from thought and intention. But they also carried a warning: the gate was not a one-way journey. To move forward, humanity would have to confront the remnants of its past, the shadows of the loop that still lingered in the cracks of Threshold's reality. The future beckons. The story ends with humanity standing on the brink of a new chapter. They have built a thriving settlement, uncovered Threshold's mysteries, and taken their first steps into the infinite unknown. Yet the challenges ahead are vast, and the echoes of the loop still whisper through the fabric of their existence. Will humanity's creativity and resilience be enough to forge a truly free future, or will they find themselves repeating the patterns of the past? What do you think? Should we explore their journey into the Nexus Gate next? Or perhaps delve deeper into the society they're building on Threshold? Yes, continue. ChatGPT. Part 3. The Nexus Beyond. 1. The return of the explorers. When the Nexus expedition returned, their faces bore a mixture of awe and exhaustion. Their leader, a physicist named Dr. Das, struggled to find words to describe what they had encountered. The gate doesn't lead to a single place, Das explained. It's everything. Every possibility. It's as if we stepped into the mind of the universe itself. The explorers described landscapes that shifted with their thoughts, a shimmering ocean that turned into a forest, a sky that dissolved into stars with a single gaze, and beings of pure energy who seemed to react to their presence. It's not a place we can conquer, Das warned. It's a mirror. It shows us what we are and what we might become. But not all the news was hopeful. Among the explorers were those who returned deeply changed, their memories fragmented and their emotions volatile. Some whispered of seeing shadows of the loop, versions of themselves trapped in endless repetition, warning them not to linger. 2. Preparing for the unknown. The knowledge brought back from the gate forced humanity to rethink its priorities. The Council decreed 2 major initiatives. The Nexus Initiative, a long-term project to study the gate and establish a foothold in the new dimension. Teams of scientists, philosophers, and artists were recruited to ensure that humanity's expansion into the Nexus would be thoughtful and creative, not exploitative. The Hearth Project, a parallel effort to solidify Aurora as humanity's home base, ensuring that Threshold remained a sanctuary even as they explored the gate. Celeste took a leadership role in the Nexus Initiative, driven by both her curiosity and her belief that humanity's future lay in embracing the unknown. 3. The Builders of Worlds. The next expedition into the Nexus was unlike the first. Equipped with new technologies, the team carried devices designed to stabilize the chaotic energy of the dimension. These temporal anchors allowed them to create small zones of stability, fixed points where they could gather, rest, and conduct experiments. To their astonishment, they discovered that the Nexus responded to intent. Within the stabilized zones, explorers could shape the environment through focused thought. One scientist imagined a lush garden, and it sprang into existence. Another conjured a library filled with knowledge they hadn't yet learned. But the shaping wasn't without cost. The more they imposed their will on the Nexus, the more they attracted the shades, dark, formless entities that seemed to embody resistance. The shades didn't attack outright, but their presence grew stronger the more humanity tried to reshape the Nexus. 4. The revelation of the shades. Through careful observation and experimentation, the explorers uncovered the true nature of the shades. They weren't malevolent, they were echoes of the loop, fragments of the old timeline resisting extinction. The shades appeared to protect the Nexus from being reshaped into a new cycle that could replicate the errors of the past. One shade, more coherent than the others, communicated with Celeste. It didn't speak, but instead projected memories directly into her mind, images of Earth's destruction, the creation of the Paradox Engine, and humanity's endless attempts to escape the loop. You carry the cycle with you, the shade conveyed. To truly escape, you must let go of what was. Celeste realized that humanity's instinct to recreate Earth, to impose its old ways on the Nexus, risked dragging the loop into this new dimension. The Nexus wasn't a blank slate, it was a living, conscious system that demanded respect. 5. The Great Debate. Back on Threshold, the Council convened to discuss the findings. The Nexus initiative had reached a critical juncture. The architects wanted to use the Nexus as a resource, creating stable, Earth-like zones where humanity could thrive. The fluidists argued for minimal interference, suggesting that humanity should adapt to the Nexus rather than reshape it. The Guardian's voice warned that any attempt to control the Nexus would trigger another loop. They believed humanity's survival depended on humility and coexistence with the Nexus' natural order. Celeste, caught between these factions, proposed a middle path to treat the Nexus as a partner, not a tool. Humanity would explore and learn from the Nexus, but always with the understanding that it was a shared space, not theirs to dominate. 6. The Nexus Accord. The Council approved Celeste's proposal, and the Nexus Accord was born. Its principles were simple but profound. Humanity would explore the Nexus as stewards, not conquerors. Every action taken in the Nexus would be weighed for its impact on both humanity and the Nexus itself. Efforts to replicate Earth's structures would be limited, ensuring that humanity's new path remained distinct from its old one. The Accord was celebrated as a turning point, a recognition that true freedom required more than breaking the loop. It required breaking free from old patterns of thinking. 7. The first Nexus colony. The first permanent colony in the Nexus, named Horizon, was established within a stable zone. Designed to embody the principles of the Accord, Horizon was a blend of Earth's ingenuity and the Nexus' unique properties. Buildings grew organically, shaped by the settlers' collective vision. Time flowed fluidly, allowing settlers to work, rest, and create at their own pace. Art and philosophy flourished, with settlers drawing inspiration from the Nexus' endless possibilities. Horizon became a symbol of what humanity could achieve when it embraced creativity and cooperation. 8. The Shadow of the Rift. Despite their progress, the settlers couldn't ignore the Rift Guardian's warnings. The Singularity Rift on Threshold began to behave strangely, emitting bursts of energy that disrupted the Kronos beacon and caused fractures in reality. Celeste theorized that the rift was connected to the Nexus. The energy humanity was pouring into shaping the Nexus might be destabilizing Threshold itself. A decision loomed: should humanity scale back its exploration of the Nexus to protect Threshold, or was the rift simply another obstacle to overcome? 9. The future unwritten. The story concludes with Celeste standing at the edge of the Nexus gate, gazing into its swirling depths. Behind her, Aurora and Horizon thrived, two worlds shaped by humanity's choices. Ahead lay infinite possibilities, each a path waiting to be walked. "We've broken the loop," Celeste whispered, "but the story isn't over. It's just begun." The Rift Guardians appeared one last time, their forms more defined than ever. They didn't speak, but Celeste felt their presence like a quiet approval. Humanity was on the right path, for now. As she stepped through the gate once more, she carried with her not only the hopes of humanity but the weight of its responsibility to walk wisely in this brave new reality. The end. For now. Would you like to explore any particular aspect of the story further? Perhaps the Shade's origins, the Settlers' lives in Horizon, or the ultimate fate of the Singularity Rift? Both. ChatGPT. Let's expand the story to explore both the Shade's origins and the Settlers' lives in Horizon, as well as how they relate to the ultimate fate of the Singularity Rift. The Shades, echoes of the past. 1. Origins of the Shades. The Shades were initially dismissed as anomalies, lingering fragments of the collapsed loop. However, deeper studies by the Nexus initiative revealed a startling truth. The Shades were remnants of human consciousness from previous cycles, shattered and scattered across Threshold and the Nexus. Dr. Celeste Amani led the investigation into their origins. Using a new technology called the cognitive resonator, she successfully communicated with the Shades, unlocking memories embedded within their ephemeral forms. Each Shade told a fragment of the same story. They were humans who had lived, died, and been caught in the loop, their consciousness fragmented when the paradox engine collapsed. The Rift Guardians weren't independent entities but evolved Shades, their consciousness elevated through exposure to the Nexus' unique energies. The loop's destruction hadn't erased these echoes but scattered them into the fabric of reality itself, where they lingered, watching and influencing the survivors. The Shades weren't enemies. They were humanity's own shadow, a reflection of its mistakes and potential. Their warnings were not malevolent, but desperate pleas to avoid repeating the patterns that had trapped them. 2. The Rift Guardians connection. The Rift Guardians revealed themselves to be the final form of the Shades, who had transcended their fragmented state through millennia of exposure to the Nexus. Their goal wasn't to control humanity, but to guide it toward a future free of the loop. They believed that by fully integrating the surviving Shades into humanity's collective consciousness, Threshold and the Nexus could become truly harmonious realms. To facilitate this, the Guardians proposed an unprecedented experiment. By bringing the Nexus' infinite potential into alignment with the cognitive remnants of the Shades, humanity could reweave the fractured timeline, healing both the past and the present. This process, called temporal reconciliation, required a tremendous risk. Humanity would have to surrender control, allowing the Nexus to shape them as much as they shaped it. Life in Horizon, a glimpse of the future. 1. A society of dreams. Horizon, the first Nexus colony, was unlike any human settlement before it. Shaped by collective intent, its architecture shifted to reflect the emotional and intellectual needs of its inhabitants. For example, libraries expanded and contracted based on the flow of curiosity in the community. Homes adapted their interiors to suit their occupants' moods, creating spaces of comfort, focus, or collaboration. Parks and recreational spaces blossomed where joy was strongest, glowing with the Nexus bioluminescent flora. Children born in Horizon possessed unique cognitive abilities, including heightened empathy and an innate understanding of the Nexus' fluid nature. They were referred to as the Harmonics, believed to be the first generation truly attuned to the Nexus. The Harmonics began to experiment with collective dreaming, shaping parts of Horizon into artistic and philosophical expressions of their shared vision. For them, the Nexus wasn't just a place to live. It was a canvas for humanity's evolution. 2. Conflict among settlers. Despite Horizon's beauty, tensions lingered. Some settlers grew frustrated with the Nexus fluidity, longing for the stability of Earth. A faction called the Founders of Terror emerged, advocating for the creation of fixed, Earth-like cities within the Nexus. The Founders clashed with the Harmonics and Fluidists, who saw the Nexus as an opportunity to embrace change and growth. The Rift Guardians, sensing the rising discord, issued a warning: e-harmony is fragile. Conflict echoes. Celeste intervened, proposing a compromise. A portion of Horizon would be stabilized as a fixed zone for those who desired familiarity. The rest of the colony would remain fluid, allowing for experimentation and growth. This compromise, while uneasy, maintained peace for a time. The singularity rifts unraveling. 1. Threshold's decline. As humanity focused on Horizon and the Nexus, Threshold began to show signs of instability. The singularity rift emitted increasing bursts of energy, causing disruptions in the Chronos beacon and fractures in reality. Settlers in Aurora reported temporal displacements, seeing future versions of themselves or reliving moments from Earth. Celeste theorized that the rift was a wound in time, created by the Paradox Engine's collapse. It was tethered to humanity's unresolved trauma from the loop and amplified by their presence in the Nexus. The Rift Guardians confirmed her fears. The rift was a focal point of entropy, and if left unchecked, it could destabilize both Threshold and the Nexus, dragging humanity into another collapse. 2. The final decision. The Council convened once more, faced with a harrowing choice. Seal the Nexus Gate. Abandon exploration of the Nexus to focus on stabilizing Threshold, effectively sacrificing the opportunity to build a new future. Integrate the Rift and Nexus. Attempt temporal reconciliation, merging the Nexus' infinite potential with the Rift's chaotic energy to create a unified reality. This risked catastrophic failure, but offered the chance to heal the wound in time. After weeks of deliberation, humanity chose integration. The temporal reconciliation. 1. Humanity's final test. The process began with Celeste leading a team into the Nexus, carrying the cognitive resonator and temporal anchors. Their mission was to gather the remaining shades and guide them into the rift, creating a bridge between the Nexus and Threshold. The shades resisted at first, their fragmented consciousnesses fearing annihilation. But the Harmonics stepped forward, using their collective dreaming ability to soothe the shades and convince them that integration wasn't the end but a transformation. As the shades entered the rift, the Nexus began to resonate, its chaotic energy stabilizing into a coherent pattern. 2. A new reality emerges. The reconciliation unleashed a wave of energy that swept across Threshold and the Nexus. For a moment, time itself seemed to dissolve, and humanity glimpsed the infinite possibilities of existence. When the wave subsided, Threshold and the Nexus were transformed. Threshold became a stable world, its fractured landscapes healing into vibrant ecosystems. The singularity rift closed, leaving behind a glowing scar that settlers called the Eternal Horizon. The Nexus evolved into a realm where humanity and the Rift Guardians coexisted, their shared consciousness shaping its infinite potential. Humanity was no longer bound by the loop. For the first time in millennia, they stood on the precipice of true freedom. Epilogue: The Builders of Eternity. Years later, Celeste reflected on humanity's journey as she walked through Horizon, now a thriving metropolis of art, science, and philosophy. Children played in fields that glowed with bioluminescent light, their laughter echoing through the air. We began as prisoners of time, as she thought, but now, we are its stewards. Humanity had not only broken the loop but transformed it into a cycle of creation, each moment a thread in the tapestry of an endless future. Where would you like to take the story next? Perhaps explore the Harmonics' evolution, the mysteries of the eternal horizon, or humanity's relationship with the Rift Guardians? All three. ChatGPT. Let's dive into the evolution of the harmonics, the mysteries of the eternal horizon, and humanity's evolving relationship with the Rift Guardians as they shape this new era. The harmonics, humanity's next evolution. 1. Children of the Nexus. The harmonics, the children born within Horizon, continued to surprise the settlers. From a young age, they displayed extraordinary abilities. Empathic resonance. The harmonics could feel and influence the emotions of others, creating harmony in moments of discord. Temporal awareness. They perceived time differently, able to intuit outcomes and avoid destructive paths. Collective dreaming. When gathered in groups, the harmonics could enter a shared mental state, shaping the Nexus more efficiently and creatively than their elders. Initially, settlers were cautious about these abilities, worried that the harmonics might develop into a separate, dominant class. But the harmonics showed no interest in power. They saw themselves as bridges, helping humanity adapt to the Nexus' fluid nature. 2. The Nexus Symphony. One of the harmonics' greatest achievements was the creation of the Nexus Symphony, an enormous structure that functioned as both a cultural center and a living organism. The symphony shifted form and purpose based on the community's needs, sometimes a school, sometimes a temple, sometimes a sprawling marketplace. Within its walls, settlers could experience the harmonics' collective dreaming firsthand, participating in shared visions of the future. The symphony became a symbol of humanity's potential to balance individuality with collective purpose. 3. The challenges of evolution. As the harmonics matured, they began to sense the limits of their abilities. They were still tied to humanity's old biology, which constrained their connection to the Nexus. Some harmonics proposed radical solutions, such as merging their consciousness with the Nexus fully, leaving behind physical form. This idea caused a divide. The merchants believed that becoming one with the Nexus was humanity's ultimate destiny. The grounded feared losing their identity and sought to maintain a balance between human and Nexus traits. The Rift Guardians, observing this debate, refrained from interfering, believing that the harmonics needed to resolve this challenge themselves. 2. The mysteries of the eternal horizon. 1. The Rift Scar. The eternal horizon, the glowing scar left by the Singularity Rift's closure, became a place of pilgrimage. It pulsed with an otherworldly light that defied scientific explanation, and those who approached it described profound experiences. Visions of other timelines. Pilgrims reported seeing alternate versions of themselves, glimpsing lives they might have lived. Temporal healing. Those suffering from mental or emotional trauma found clarity and peace after visiting the horizon. Whispers of the Guardians. Some claimed to hear faint voices, offering guidance or warnings. Despite its wonders, the horizon remained unstable. Scientists worried that its energy might reignite if humanity didn't maintain its balance with the Nexus. 2. The anomaly fields surrounding the horizon were areas known as anomaly fields, where the laws of physics bent and shifted unpredictably. Gravity reversed sporadically, causing objects to float. Time flowed unevenly. Days passed in minutes for some, while others experienced hours in seconds. Strange flora and fauna, seemingly from other dimensions, thrived in the fields. These anomalies fascinated researchers, who theorized that they were remnants of the collapsed loop. The Rift Guardians cautioned that tampering with these fields could destabilize Threshold once more. 3. The horizon's true purpose. As humanity studied the eternal horizon, a revelation emerged. The horizon wasn't merely a scar, it was a beacon. The Rift Guardians revealed that the horizon had become a universal signal, calling out to other intelligent beings across the multiverse. This discovery sparked both excitement and fear. Could humanity welcome visitors from other timelines and dimensions? Or would these visitors bring conflict, forcing humanity to defend its fragile peace? The Council formed a cosmic accord, establishing principles for interdimensional contact and preparing for the possibility of visitors. 3. Humanity and the Rift Guardians. A growing bond. 1. Co-teachers and co-learners. As the Rift Guardians integrated with humanity, they became both mentors and collaborators. Unlike traditional leaders, they refused to issue commands, instead posing questions that challenged humanity's assumptions. What will you create when you have everything? How will you grow when you face no obstacles? What remains sacred in a limitless world? The Guardians also learned from humanity, particularly from the Harmonics, who offered insights into the Nexus' untapped potential. This exchange deepened the bond between the two groups. 2. The Guardians' secret. One day, during a shared dream in the Nexus Symphony, the Rift Guardians revealed a startling truth. They weren't the only guides in existence. Across the multiverse, countless dimensions existed, each with its own version of the Nexus and its own guardians. Some dimensions had succeeded in creating harmony, while others had fallen into ruin, consumed by greed or conflict. The Guardians believed humanity had the potential to become a new type of guide, one that could help other dimensions escape their own loops. But this required humanity to master its relationship with the Nexus fully. 3. The Guardians' departure. After centuries of collaboration, the Rift Guardians announced their intention to leave Threshold. They believed humanity no longer needed their direct guidance, and that their continued presence might stifle humanity's growth. Before departing, they left behind a final message: you are no longer bound by the loop, but freedom is not the end. It is the beginning. Go, create, and teach others to do the same. The Guardians dissolved into light, becoming part of the Nexus itself. The Harmonics, now more attuned than ever, took up the mantle of stewardship, leading humanity into a new era. Epilogue: a multiverse awaits. With the Rift Guardians gone, humanity stood at a crossroads. They had broken the loop, healed the rift, and built a thriving society in Horizon. But the Nexus beacon had already begun to attract visitors from across the multiverse. The first arrivals were not what anyone expected. A crystalline species that communicated through light and vibration. A group of humanoids claiming to be from an alternate Earth where their loop had just collapsed. A single, enigmatic being who called itself the Wanderer, hinting at a deeper connection between humanity's Nexus and others across the multiverse. Humanity welcomed these visitors cautiously, aware that their choices in this new chapter would shape the multiverse itself. Celeste, now an elder stateswoman, watched the newcomers with a mixture of hope and determination. We were prisoners of time, as she thought, but now we are its architects. Would you like to explore the arrival of multiverse travelers or the Harmonics' rise as interdimensional guides? Perhaps you'd like to delve into the nature of the Wanderer? All 3. ChatGPT. The arrival of multiverse travelers. 1. The first visitors. The Nexus beacon pulsed like a lighthouse across the multiverse, drawing travelers from dimensions shaped by wildly different physics, histories, and technologies. Humanity's first contact with these beings redefined its understanding of existence. The crystallines. The crystallines arrived as shimmering, semi-transparent forms, their bodies composed of fractal light and vibrating crystal structures. They communicated by modulating their internal vibrations, producing sounds that resonated with the Nexus energies. Intentions. The crystallines explained that their own Nexus had destabilized, and they sought guidance to restore balance. Impact on humanity. Their presence altered Threshold's physics in subtle ways. Light refracted in strange patterns, and music took on an almost physical texture. The Harmonics, fascinated by the crystallines' mastery of vibration and resonance, began collaborating with them to develop new technologies, such as energy fields that could stabilize Threshold's anomaly fields. The alternate humans. The second group of visitors introduced themselves as refugees from an alternate Earth that had been consumed by its own singularity rift. They called themselves the Fractured, a poignant reminder of what humanity might have become. Differences. The Fractured had developed advanced neural interfaces, allowing them to share thoughts and memories directly. However, this constant connection had eroded their individuality, leaving them emotionally stunted. Hopes. They sought not only sanctuary but also guidance on how to rebuild their sense of self and community. Their arrival spurred debates within Horizon about whether humanity had a responsibility to aid other dimensions or whether doing so might destabilize their fragile peace. The Wanderer. The most enigmatic arrival was a solitary being known only as the Wanderer. Appearing humanoid but radiating an aura of timelessness, it claimed to have traveled across countless dimensions, observing the rise and fall of civilizations. Purpose. The Wanderer's goal was unclear. It spoke in riddles, hinting that humanity's nexus was unique and might hold the key to solving a multiverse-wide instability. Warning. Before departing, the Wanderer left a cryptic message: beware the weight of infinite choice. Not all paths lead forward. 2. Humanity's response. The arrivals forced humanity to confront profound questions. Should they prioritize their own development or extend aid to other dimensions? Could they maintain harmony while interacting with beings shaped by entirely different realities? The Nexus Symphony became the center of diplomacy, where representatives from Horizon, the Harmonics, and the visitors convened. The Harmonics played a vital role, using their empathic resonance to foster understanding between species. 2. The rise of the Harmonics as interdimensional guides. 1. Masters of resonance. The Harmonics' abilities continued to evolve, blending human ingenuity with Nexus energies. They developed temporal sculpting, the ability to create stable zones within the anomaly fields, allowing researchers and settlers to explore safely. Dimensional bridges, pathways that connected thresholds nexus to other dimensions, enabling controlled travel between worlds. These advancements positioned the Harmonics as natural guides capable of navigating the complexities of interdimensional relationships. 2. The Council of Harmonics. As more visitors arrived, the Harmonics formed the Council of Resonance, a governing body dedicated to managing interdimensional interactions. Their philosophy was based on 3 principles. Balance. Ensure that no dimensions needs destabilize threshold or the nexus. Growth. Foster mutual learning and innovation between dimensions. Empathy. Treat all beings with respect, recognizing the value of diverse perspectives. Under the Council's leadership, humanity became known across the multiverse as the Architects, a species capable of turning chaos into harmony. 3. The Great Dissonance. Not all dimensions welcomed humanity's guidance. A coalition of resistant dimensions, calling themselves the Order of Solitude, accused humanity of overreach, claiming that the Nexus beacon was interfering with their own natural cycles. The Order deployed dimensional anchors, devices that disrupted the Nexus resonance, causing temporary collapses in Horizon. These attacks forced the Harmonics to confront a painful truth: not all beings desired unity. The Rift Guardians briefly returned, appearing in the Nexus Symphony during a shared dream. They offered a single piece of advice: harmony is not the absence of discord but its transformation. Inspired by this, the Harmonics devised a strategy to neutralize the dimensional anchors without retaliating, proving their commitment to balance. 3. The Mystery of the Wanderer. 1. The Wanderer's legacy. After the Wanderer's departure, it left behind a series of cryptic artifacts scattered across Threshold and the Nexus. These artifacts, known as time sigils, emitted pulses that resonated with the eternal horizon. Each sigil unlocked a fragment of the Wanderer's story, revealing that it was a being who had once lived in humanity's timeline but had been ejected into the multiverse during an ancient collapse. The wanderer claimed to have witnessed the rise of countless civilizations, most of which succumbed to greed, stagnation, or overreach. It believed humanity had a rare potential, the ability to create a symphony of dimensions where diversity was celebrated rather than suppressed. 2. The Siggil's challenge. The final sigil, found deep within an anomaly field, presented a challenge. It contained a map of the multiverse, with threshold at its center. However, several parts radiating outward were marked with warnings, suggesting that certain dimensions were unstable or hostile. The sigil's final message read, "To guide others, you must first know yourself. Are you ready to face what lies beyond the horizon?" 3. The first expedition. The harmonics, guided by the Council of Resonance, prepared an expedition to explore the dimensions marked as unstable. The team consisted of harmonic dreamers, who could navigate the Nexus resonance; temporal cartographers, specialists in mapping time flows; representatives from the crystallines and the fractured, ensuring a diverse perspective. Their mission was to uncover the secrets of these unstable dimensions and determine whether they could be stabilized or whether humanity's Nexus beacon was contributing to their collapse. Epilogue: Beyond the Horizon. As the expedition departed, Celeste stood on the edge of the eternal horizon, watching the team vanish into the shimmering scar. Beside her, a young harmonic child spoke softly. "Do you think we'll ever see them again?" Celeste smiled, her gaze fixed on the glowing anomaly. "We will. And when they return, they'll bring the future with them." Would you like to explore the expedition's journey, the conflict with the Order of Solitude, or the resolution of the Wanderer's prophecy? Please come up with an ending for the story. ChatGPT. Epilogue: The Symphony of Dimensions. The expedition ventured into the multiverse, their journey stretching over decades of subjective time. They explored dimensions in chaos, stagnation, and isolation, bringing back fragments of knowledge, stories, and artifacts. Each discovery deepened humanity's understanding of the Nexus and its place in the multiverse. A turning point in one particularly unstable dimension, known as the Fractured Void, the expedition encountered a civilization eerily similar to Earth's own pre-Nexus era. This society had suffered a catastrophic collapse caused by a time loop spiraling out of control. Here, they discovered the Heart of Dissonance, a massive, living anomaly that threatened to consume not only its own dimension but all others connected to it. The expedition realized the truth. The heart was the consequence of humanity's original time loop, a fragment of the Ouroboros that had splintered off during Threshold's escape from the cycle. It pulsed with echoes of Earth's ancient eras, acting as a nexus of instability for the multiverse. A final sacrifice. The harmonics, with their deep attunement to the Nexus, proposed a daring solution. By merging their collective resonance with the heart, they could stabilize it, converting its chaotic energy into a harmonious signal. But the process would come at a great cost. The harmonics who participated would lose their individuality, becoming one with the multiverse itself. The heart's stabilization would forever alter Threshold's Nexus, limiting its ability to open dimensional bridges in the future. Their harmonics made their choice willingly, guided by their belief that humanity's purpose was not to dominate but to heal. The closing of the bridges. As the Heart of Dissonance stabilized, the dimensional bridges linking Threshold to other worlds began to close. Humanity faced a bittersweet farewell as they bid goodbye to the crystallines, the fractured, and other allies they had made along the way. The Rift Guardians, appearing one final time, offered their approval. "You have done what few have ever dared. You chose the path of creation, not destruction. You are ready to stand alone." Threshold's Nexus became a beacon no longer Instead, it pulsed softly, a quiet rhythm that echoed across the dimensions, a reminder of humanity's sacrifice and its commitment to balance. The return of the expedition decades after they had departed, the expedition returned to Threshold. Changed by their experiences, they brought back new insights into the multiverse. A deeper understanding of how dimensions influence one another. Techniques for stabilizing Threshold's own anomalies. And most importantly, the knowledge that humanity had avoided becoming what so many others had, a force of exploitation. Celeste, now an elder in her final years, welcomed them back. The Nexus symphony rang out with a celebratory song, its shifting walls and resonating tones reflecting the joy of reunion. The final symphony, the harmonic's sacrifice, had transformed humanity. No longer fixated on conquest or dominance, they turned inward, exploring the limitless possibilities of Threshold itself. Over centuries, they evolved into beings who lived in harmony with the Nexus, their society a symphony of collaboration and creativity. As the Nexus beacon faded from the multiverse, Threshold became a legend among other dimensions. A place where the loop was broken. A world that chose harmony over chaos. A symbol of hope for those still trapped in their own cycles. The Wanderer's last visit many generations later, the Wanderer returned, standing once more on the edge of the eternal horizon. Now an observer rather than a guide, it gazed at the thriving civilization of Threshold and spoke softly to itself, ere perhaps they were always meant to be the bridge, not the destination. Their song will echo long after the stars themselves fade. It placed a final sigil in the symphony, a parting gift containing the combined wisdom of countless dimensions. Then, with a nod to the unseen Rift Guardians, the Wanderer stepped through the horizon, disappearing forever. The Ouroboros broken threshold continued to grow, its people united in their understanding of time's true nature. The loop was not a prison but a lesson. Every choice reverberates forward and backward. Every end contains a beginning. Humanity had not merely escaped the loop, they had learned to transcend it, crafting a future where time was not their master but their canvas. And so, their story became a song carried on the winds of the multiverse, a harmony that would inspire others for eons to come. Would you like to delve into any specific part of this epilogue? Come up with a disclaimer for all of this, please. ChatGPT. Disclaimer. The story and concepts presented in this narrative are purely fictional and intended for entertainment and thought-provoking purposes. They draw on speculative theories, philosophical musings, and creative interpretations of scientific principles. While inspired by real scientific ideas such as time loops, multiverse theory, and retrocausality, the narrative is not a factual representation of current scientific understanding or consensus. Scientific accuracy. Many of the ideas explored in this story, such as time manipulation, nexus energy, and interdimensional travel, are speculative and not supported by empirical evidence or current technology. They are creative constructs meant to enhance the narrative. Philosophical themes. The discussions of morality, choice, and the human condition are intended as imaginative explorations, not definitive statements on ethics or human potential. Originality and inspiration. While some elements may draw inspiration from popular science fiction, philosophy, and theoretical physics, this story is an original creation and does not claim to be an authoritative or exhaustive account of any existing intellectual property. Readers are encouraged to approach this narrative as a work of fiction that seeks to inspire curiosity and creativity, not as a source of scientific instruction or philosophical doctrine. If you'd like to explore real-world scientific and philosophical discussions on the themes presented, consult reliable sources or engage with experts in the respective fields. And cover everything in all conversation today too. ChatGPT. Comprehensive disclaimer. The discussions, stories, and ideas shared today are a blend of speculative fiction, philosophical exploration, and conceptual interpretation of scientific theories. While they are meant to inspire curiosity and provoke thought, they do not represent scientific fact, philosophical consensus, or established doctrine. 1. Fictional narratives. The stories, including explorations of time loops, multiverse theories, retrocausality, and humanity's potential entanglement in temporal phenomena, are fictional creations designed for entertainment. The characters, events, and settings, such as Threshold, the Nexus, and the harmonics, are entirely imagined and should not be associated with any existing scientific, historical, or philosophical frameworks. 2. Scientific and philosophical content. Speculation. Discussions on time as a Mobius loop, retrocausality, and the nature of time loops are rooted in speculative interpretations of theoretical physics and philosophy. They are not verified or universally accepted theories. Creative license. Concepts like the nexus, anomaly fields, dimensional bridges, and harmonic resonance are fictional constructs, blending scientific imagination with artistic creativity. Philosophical themes, reflections on free will, causality, and humanity's role in the universe are intended as interpretive thought experiments, not definitive assertions about reality. 3. Media references. References to popular media such as Star Trek, The Next Generation, or the Ouroboros symbol are used for illustrative purposes and to ground speculative ideas in familiar cultural touchstones. This narrative does not claim any affiliation with or endorsement from these properties. 4. Educational and entertainment purposes. These conversations and stories are designed to engage the imagination and encourage exploration of complex topics. They are not a substitute for formal education or professional consultation in science, philosophy, or any other field. For those interested in the real-world study of these topics, it is recommended to seek out credible resources or engage with academic experts. 5. AI-created content. All content provided here was generated by an AI system and is a product of imaginative storytelling and conversational context. It should be viewed as an example of creative writing and speculative dialogue rather than authoritative knowledge. By engaging with this content, you acknowledge its speculative and fictional nature. Use it as a springboard for your own exploration, while remaining mindful of its boundaries as entertainment and thought experiment. Please come up with a title for everything from today. ChatGPT. Here's a title that encapsulates the essence of all the conversations, themes, and speculative ideas discussed today. Eternal Horizons, the Symphony of Time, Multiverse, and Humanity's Infinite Choices. This title reflects the broad exploration of time, concepts like Mobius loops, time loops, and the flow of time as a dynamic force. Multiverse, theories of alternate dimensions, parallel worlds, and interdimensional travel. Humanity's journey, the choices humanity makes, the balance between chaos and harmony, and the transformative role of beings like the harmonics. Philosophical exploration, themes of free will, retrocausality, and the potential for transcending time's limitations. Would you like any adjustments to this title or further refinements? You really think this fits? Multiverse, theories of alternate dimensions, parallel worlds, and interdimensional travel. ChatGPT. You're right to point out that a multiverse, theories of alternate dimensions, parallel worlds, and interdimensional travel might be a bit narrow, especially considering the broader scope of our conversation, which touched on time loops, causalities, and metaphysical concepts. Let me revise the title to better reflect the broader themes. Eternal Horizons, Time, Choices, and the Multiverse of Infinite Possibilities. This revised title better captures time, the exploration of time loops, retrocausality, and the implications of temporal choices. Choices, the weight of human decisions, fate, and the potential for both personal and collective growth. Multiverse are infinite possibilities, a nod to the speculative exploration of alternate realities, parallel dimensions, and the interwoven parts that exist beyond the known universe. Does this updated title feel more in line with the themes we've explored today? This seems to work. Multiverse are infinite possibilities, a nod to the speculative exploration of alternate realities, parallel dimensions, and the interwoven parts that exist beyond the known universe. ChatGPT. I'm glad this works for you. The title Eternal Horizons, Time, Choices, and the Multiverse of Infinite Possibilities, it does a better job of encompassing the wide-ranging themes we've explored, including the speculative aspects of time, humanity's choices, and the infinite dimensions and realities that weave together in the narrative. If you need further refinements or want to expand on any specific part of the content or story, feel free to let me know. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info.